And now I'm going to go next to deeper into the Sarod, the discovery of Sarod. So for that, we are going to talk about a little bit about Nawab Wajid Ali Shah. He was the 11th and the last king of Awadh. Awadh is a province, and his kingdom was annexed by East India Company, and he was sent into a town called Metiabruz, where he was given a small stipend and he was exiled there by the British East India Company. He, by the way, was a musician in his own right, and he and his court, he had a descendant of Tansen called Basat Khan. Now I'm going to go back to Tansen's lineage, and I'll show you where Basat Khan sits. So here is Tansen's son's Gharana, and if you go down, and here, if you can see my hand, this is where Basat Khan is. So Basat Khan was a court musician of Ustad, Nawab Wajid Ali Shah, and with him was Niamatullah Khan, who was the main disciple of Basat Khan. Now, as I said, Niamatullah Khan was a rababia. He used to play the Afghani rabab. He was a horse trader, and also he used to play the rabab. He came from Afghanistan. So during that time, when he and Niamatullah Khan and Basat Khan were in Wajid Ali Shah's court, Niamatullah Khan wanted to learn the Indian music. He was fascinated by the raga music. So he went to Basat Khan and he said that I want to learn the music. And then he brought with him his rabab. And Basat Khan said that I cannot teach you in this instrument because there are many disadvantages with rabab. One is that rabab, the strings, traditionally the strings were made of gut string, not metals. So they weren't resonating. You couldn't sustain a note for a long time. It was more like a damped when you pluck it, you would hear a damp noise. And also, rabab had only 2 octaves. It could allow only 2 octaves. And for Indian classical music, you need more than that. So Basat Khan said that, oh, I cannot teach you in this instrument. It's not, this instrument is not suited for Indian music. So Niyamatullah Khan went back, and what he did is, now I'm going to show you the rabab. He took off this region and put a metal plate, and then he changed the gut strings to metal strings and converted this into a sarod. And then he went back to Basat Khan and said that, look, I have the instrument ready. Now, can you teach me? And from that point, he started learning from Basat Khan. And this is the first sarod that was created. It was created by Ustad Niyamatullah. And it's actually, if you look at this sarod, it's a combination of the sarod. I'm going to show this picture of the sarod here. This is how the sarod looks like. It's actually a combination of the rabab, because it has the sympathetic strings, right? The sarod has the sympathetic strings here. Over here, you see the sympathetic strings, the small, tiny little pegs. It has the same tiny little pegs as the rabab. And it's a combination of this instrument, which is called a shursingar. I'm going to say a little bit about shursingar as well, because look, in shursingar, it does not have the rabab has a skin, has a drum here, which is covered by goat skin. So does sarod. Sarod has a drum here. It's covered by goat skin. But this instrument here, shursingar, does not have anything. It's all wood, but it does have a metal plate. So this metal plate is borrowed from shursingar and put into sarod, and the remaining part of the shape of the rabab is preserved. Now, about shursingar, shursingar is a derivative of the Senia rabab, and it was created by someone called Jafar Khan. Now, he again is a Senia. I'm going to go back to the lineage and I'll show you where Jafar Khan sits. Here is Jafar Khan. He belonged to the rabab, Senia rabab family of Tansen, and he is the one who is known to have created the shursingar from Senia rabab. And there is a story behind it, why he created that instrument here. So what happened was that, now I'm going to go to the lineage, Tansen's lineage again, to tell you the story. So if you look at these two lineages, now here is Jafar Khan. So here's Jivan Shah, who comes from Tansen's daughter's family. So he played the veena, and this is Jafar Khan. They were both in the court of Maharaja in Benares, and they were asked to perform in front of Maharaja of Benares. And so the first person to go was Jivan Shah. He played a beautiful rag with his veena, but when it came to Jafar Khan's turn, he was a little bit scared, because what happened with this rabab, the Senia rabab, is that, first of all, because it was the instrument did not have metal strings, it had gut strings, and it had a hide here, skin, and that day when they were having this concert, the weather was very bad. It was raining a lot. It was very humid, and in that temperature, in that climate, this hide captures a lot of moisture, and the sound that was coming from his rabab was very bad. So he had to stop his playing in the middle, and he told the Maharaja that, give me a few more days, I'm going to come back and perform again. And realizing that these are the limitations of rabab, that it's very sensitive to the weather, and the fact that the gut strings don't help either, what he did is he invented this instrument, the Senia, the shursingar, where you can see he took off the hide and he put wood on top, and he took off gut strings and he put metal strings there, and that's how the shursingar came. And then he created that instrument, he practiced, and he came back and performed in front of the Maharaja. So that might be a story. That probably is a story, but that's That's a popular story of how Shrusingar was created. And it does look a lot like the Senia Rabab. Shrusingar is also not that popular anymore. It may be because of its dimensions. People don't play that anymore that much, but it's still there. But the Senia Rabab is completely gone from the music.
As the Sursingar, it has two gods, right?
Yes.
So it is closer to the Rudravina than the Senyarabad.
So the Rudravina, if you look, the big difference is that in the sound quality. If you look at the Rudravina, these frets are made of metal, and there are metal strings going. So in order to create a sound, you would have to. It's like sitar. You have to press the string against those frets. So it's a metal to metal contact. So the sound that will come out of a Rudravina would be metallic sound. Whereas if you look at the Shrusingar or the Rabab, whichever, there is no fret. It's like Sarod. And the strings are pressed against the metal board with your finger. So it's not a metal to metal contact. It's a nail or a finger to metal contact. So the sound would be quite different, actually. And also there is no fret. So it's a continuous. I mean, it's really like Sarod. So you can slide it throughout the plate without getting obstructed by any fret. And about the gourd, it's usually might have been added later on to get more resonance. It's quite possible that when it was first created, there was no second gourd on the top. So now we found out this sarod, right? How sarod was created. It's a combination of the Shrusingar and the Afghani Rabab. And the Shrusingar is actually, so if you look at the flow, this Veena is not coming into the picture at all, right? Because you have the Senia Rabab, then the Shrusingar, then the Afghani Rabab, and with Shrusingar and Afghani Rabab, you create the sarod. So Veena is not in the picture as far as sarod is concerned. Now, here I've put two pictures of the sarod and below. The reason being that this is the traditional sarod that is played by the two gharanas that come from the Afghani ancestors. And this one, the one here with 4 pegs, as you can see, 4 pegs at the end. This is a sarod that was created by the Ustad Alauddin Khan. He created a separate gharana. It's not coming from one of the Afghan ancestors. It's a separate gharana. It's called the Maihar Gharana. So they use this sarod. So there are 2 types of sarods actually. One is the one that is used by the gharanas that are descended from the Afghani ancestors, and the other one is the Maihar Gharana, which was created by Ustad Alauddin Khan. Now, I'll say a little bit about the gharanas itself. So, as I said, there were 3 Afghani gharanas. One among them is called the Senia Shahjahanpur Gharana. So here, the first 3 are too far back in history. We don't know much about them, but we know more about from the people from this period: Murad Ali Khan, Hussain Ali Khan, and Nanhe Khan. Now, so Nanhe Khan's son was Ustad Hafiz Ali Khan, and Hafiz Ali Khan's son is Ustad Amjad Ali Khan. We know him very well. So that's one line. The other line is Murad Ali Khan. Now, from Murad Ali Khan, there you see between Murad Ali Khan and Abdullah Khan, there's a dotted line, not a solid line. And the reason why there's a dotted line is because Abdullah Khan was not his inherited. I mean, he was not his son. So he was adopted by Murad Ali. Murad Ali Khan did not have a child or a son actually, because at that time girls were not allowed to do music. So he adopted because as we know that all these people were resident of Shahjahanpur, where there were lots of Sarodiyas or Rababia families. So Murad Ali adopted Abdullah Khan, who was he was a small kid from that Maholla, so from the Sarodia Maholla, from the Rababia Maholla, and he trained him. And Abdullah Khan's son was Ustad Amir Khan. And then Ustad Amir Khan's disciple was Pandit Radhika Mohan Maitra. And from Radhika Mohan Maitra, you have Pandit Buddhadev Das Gupta. And I learned from Pandit Buddhadev Das Gupta. So I would be under him. So this is one gharana. So here, these are the other two gharanas. What happened at some point, I will show you, these two gharanas merged. So this is Karimullah Khan, Najaf Ali Khan. They were that's as far as we can go. Before that, we don't know. Now, here is Niyamatullah Khan, as you can see, who created the Sarod. And then from them, you have his two sons, Kiramatullah Khan and Asadullah Kukub Khan. Now, Niyamatullah Khan's daughter was married to Shafayat Ali Khan here. So here you have an alliance between Shafayat Ali Khan and the daughter of Niyamatullah Khan. So this is where the merge first happened between the two Gharanas. And then Shafayat Ali Khan's son was Sakhawat Hussain Khan, who married Ashadullah Kukub Khan's daughter. So there's a second alliance here. And these two led to the merger of these two Gharanas. And then from Sakhawat Hussain Khan, you have Umar Khan, Ilyas Khan, and then you have Irfan Muhammad Khan, who is still alive, and he's the last descendant of this Gharana, blood descendant. And this for some reason, this Gharana has kind of gotten out of focus completely. And one reason probably is that for this entire period, they did not train anybody outside their family who ended up being a musician. They did, however, train some people who were just learning the music as a hobby, but who were like rich people and they wanted to learn an instrument. So they taught them, but they did not teach people who ended up being musicians. There are, I mean, Ustad Irfan Muhammad Khan actually is another person who I currently learn from, because I want to also explore this new Gharana. I have originally trained under Pandit Buddhadev Das Gupta, but I recently started getting some training from Ustad Irfan Muhammad Khan to get to know this Gharana well. So he told me that Ustad Vilayat Khan, who is probably one of the great sitarists, he once came to Ustad Sakhawat Hussain Khan and wanted to learn from him, but he did not take him as a student. So for some reason, they ended up not teaching people who were actually accomplished musicians.
Did they not teach outsiders because this was their bread and butter? It's like a patent. If they give it to somebody else, it can, it would have impacted their, product, livelihood, so to speak. Yeah, like, Coke formula is not given to anyone so that nobody else can, make Coke. So similarly, if they gave out their trade secrets to somebody who would continue it as a profession, he could go out and start his own Gharana, and then that would impact them.
I think so. I think it comes from the basic behavior of human being. Like, I do not want to share my trade secret because that would be impacting my children. So I think most of it was from that, but yeah, I think so. I mean, I cannot say for sure, but I think that's probably the reason.
Because that is what made them unique and special, and that is why people call them. So if they gave that out to everybody, on the street, then there would be nothing unique and special about them. Like I said, similar to Coke.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's probably the reason. But having said that, this Gharana was the dominating Gharana until Sakhawat. Actually, so up until Sakhawat Hussain Khan, this was the Sarod Gharana. There was nobody else. I mean, this Gharana existed, but it was not as popular as this. This was Ashadullah Kukub Khan, right, and Kiramatullah Khan, and they actually brought, and also Niyamatullah Khan to some extent, they brought Sarod in Bengal. Nobody knew about Sarod. They were the ones who brought this instrument to Bengal. And there's another story about Sakhawat Hussain Khan. When in the 1930s, I think, there was an item in Olympics called performing arts. It doesn't exist anymore. Sakhawat Hussain Khan went to compete for India there, and he ended up getting gold medal. This was the Gharana at that time, but now it has you won't even hear recordings of these people in this Gharana. They're not available commercially, so it's very strange. And then the last Gharana I was talking about is the Ustad Alauddin Khan's Gharana. There are many people, many names you will see. You'll see a lot of familiar names here. So this is Ustad Alauddin Khan. They were actually they're from East Bengal, and they were originally they were Hindus. So you can see Dinanath Dev Sharma, and then they converted into Islam, and then Alauddin Khan, of course, was Islam, and I was Muslim, and then he's one of the biggest figures in like post independent India, because he created a lot of big artists. Ali Akbar Khan Sahab, he was his son, and definitely an amazing sarod player, musician. Pandit Ravi Shankar, Pandit Nikhil Banerjee, you name it. Yeah, so I mean, there's so many people whom Ustad Alauddin Khan Sahab taught. This is probably at this point now, this is the most popular Gharana. And whenever you would see some people playing sarod, chances are that you would see this version of sarod, because this is from that Gharana, as opposed to seeing this version of sarod.
So, Satyaki, a couple of questions about your involvement with Sarod. Firstly, how did you get interested in Sarod?
Um, Pandit Buddhadev Das Gupta was a family friend. I knew him from my mother knew him from the time she was a kid. So I knew about Sarod, and my mother's cousins. One of them is Pandit Sugato Nag, whom I learned from, well, occasionally take lessons from, and his older brother. They both learned from Pandit Buddhadev Das Gupta, and his older brother was play sarod. So I kind of was very familiar with this instrument, and I was very interested in them right from my childhood. So.
What age did you begin your formal training?
So sarod, I started a little late. I started around 14 or 15 years, when I was 14 or 15 years old. But prior to that, for about 6-7 years, maybe, I played tabla.
So, what made you kind of focus fully on Sarod and pretty much give up tabla?
So they're quite different, right? Tabla is all rhythms, and sarod is melody. So I always liked the melody more than the rhythms, and it was around that time when I really said I absolutely want to learn, not continue with rhythm, but switch to melody. And then
So, again, thank you very much and have a wonderful new year.
you too. Thank you very much.